Hey guys,
Hello.
thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. I'm Nick. Who we got?
Plutarch.
Over Plutarch. Over to
Plutarch.
the right.
Steve.
And Steve. Welcome to the Resurgence. Please, guys, like and subscribe. We're talking about tonight. Well, guys, what are we talking about?
Well, I think we're talking about the man-bad belief system.
Yeah, man bad.
Well, before we get into that, tonight, our series on Wednesday nights is called Countercultural Sexuality. It's comparing basically what God intended to what's going on in our world and how things are messed up. And that's kind of the general theme. On Monday nights, we talk about exposing the narratives. And well, that's kind of like propaganda wherever you go. People have belief systems, narratives, stories that they tell you to believe what they want to believe. Now, some of these themes, it could be a narrative or it could be a countercultural sexuality. They're kind of close to each other, but that's how we try and distinguish these streams. So tonight, it's countercultural sexuality, and the focus will be on what the church is doing and how they perceive men versus eventually what they should be doing. And they need to take a countercultural approach. And I think you'll see that the approach they're taking is more secular in than it is Christian.
That's correct.
So, I just wanted to add that in there to put some context to this.
And I want to start with making a distinction. So, in Christian understanding, unless you're a Pelagian, man is, because of the fall, because of original sin, he's born fallen. He's born in sin with the original corruption. That's both men and women are born in sin, and they do sin daily in thought, word, and deed. So yeah, man bad, sure, that is theologically correct, but it also includes woman bad, because mankind is fallen, not just man, but man and woman in Adam, and are both in need of redemption, regeneration, and forgiveness, which you have in Christ, the new Adam. But so that's not what we're talking about tonight. But I did want to make that clarification. Yeah, mankind is bad. Does it mean mankind is bad as it possibly could be? No. But in the church, of all places who should know things, they treat women as, they ain't so bad. But to the men, it's man bad. And what do we mean by man bad, guys? Give me an example.
Well, if a marriage goes bad and she's claiming that, he did some kind of some flavor of abuse.
It doesn't even have to be abuse, though, does it?
No, some flavor, emotional abuse.
We'll get there. Yeah,
it's a flavor. It's an
very
inkling.
good. Very good.
So she can say that, and they'll believe that. And then once that allegation is put out there, then obviously it absolves her of all guilt and fault. So, and the church is very easily, they go along with that. And then if he did something wrong, or if they believe he did something wrong, well, then she's blameless and all the blame falls on him.
Oh, Plutarch, anything you want to add to that?
Well, yes, the marriage one is a specific one, and it's a great one. But I've also noticed that there is this generalized belief that men cause problems in society, that men are responsible for everything that's wrong with society. And if we would just listen to the women, everything would be better. So
Oh.
man bad, woman good.
So, I mean, let's move it back to what the big theme is right now. There's all these young women out there in their 20s having fun.
Right.
And somehow they lose a lot of their innocence during these 20 something years because they're having fun.
Yeah.
But is the fun they're having their fault? Or is it because some bad men are having fun with them?
Oh, but the church will forgive them. It's not a big deal, right?
Forgive the women
Yeah.
because it was man bad.
Right.
Oh, he just seduced you.
Oh, it's those
Now,
pickup
really?
artists, right? It's those pickup artists. It's their fault.
Yeah, but they don't the church doesn't distinguish. It's all men.
Oh,
Because
pigs.
some
Yeah.
men do it. It's the problem of all men.
Men are pigs, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, but note how the church is mirroring what you see in the broader culture. Because the broader culture also says, well, men, because a man did something bad, all men bad. This is the if you meet a man or a bear in the woods question, and all the girls pick bear. It's the same thing.
Well, it's the entire justification.
Unless the man's Brad Pitt, right? They'll choose.
Well,
Brad
yeah, that's true.
But it's the entire justification for feminism. Well, way back before women had the right to vote and all these rights, men were abusing them every day, and all men were doing this. And so then we needed to change and give women rights and give them feminism so they can have equality because they were just, it was so bad. 100+ years ago. That's why women rose up and threw off the shackles of the patriarchy and affirmed feminism to take their place as equals among men.
Well, I think we'll all call bullcrap on that narrative, but
Hey, I was trying to sell it there.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So it sounds like this all revolves around somehow men are abusing women, right? Abused. Let's get into that.
Yes.
What is the actual definition of abuse? Oh, I'm going too quick there. Wrong screen. I'm gonna get to that. Boomer hour. There you go. I don't like the modern definition, so I'm gonna go with this one. This is 1828 Merriam-Webster. Abuse. So you see here, it comes from a Latin word, abitur, or abusus, of ab or an utor. It's to use ill, to maltreat, to misuse, to use with bad motives or to wrong purposes, to abuse rights or privileges, to violate, to defile by improper sexual intercourse, to deceive, to impose upon, to treat rudely or with reproachful language, to revile, to pervert the meaning of, to misapply, as to abuse words. And then there's the noun use of abuse as well. So abuse of civil rights, religious privileges, etc. So there we see a variety of meaning in 1828. So abuse technically does have a variety of meaning. But what's interesting is how we have internalized abuse in modern culture. So Steve and I are probably familiar with this. I think Plutarch is too.
Yeah.
But abuse used to be, you think of abuse, they use that. I don't think it's a ground for divorce according to the Bible and the Westminster Standards. But some used it like abuse. They originally used that as like associated that with severe physical violence, being like someone who's being beaten. Sometimes almost, with destructive force. And then it became kind of synonymous with assault or domestic violence, right? But then what changed? Well, the
Well,
terms evolved.
let me jump in there. What changed? Nick has told me, yeah, things got physical between him and his wife, and it was her taking it out on him. And in my first marriage, yeah, that happened to me too. And in fact, the police showed up. I called the police, dialed 911. They came and they arrested her. And they took pictures of me with scratches all over myself and all that. So that was abuse. But what trumps that? Oh, now abuse is making.
Verbal.
Oh, no, but yeah, verbal, whatever. But here's the definition. Now it's when a woman feels bad
Mm.
and she can attribute it to the man. Yeah, okay. If he does something physical to her, oh, obviously. But it's making her feel bad, or even her saying that he was the cause of making her feel bad. It doesn't really matter what. The physical is less important because you know what? She was not convicted of abuse or assault or anything. They just let her off scot free because she felt bad and she projected that on me for making her feel bad. So she just had to.
So
So what's more important here, the feelings or the physical? I'd say the feelings are more important.
exactly. That's why the term abuse has changed in association with physical violence. They use the sense of physical violence with it and change the term of abuse, linking it to being the same thing as physical violence, like saying a mean thing, hurting somebody's feelings, cutting them off financially if they've been, destroying the finances, right? So verbal, financial, emotional abuse, and now they can actually changing like domestic violence definitions and abuse definitions in court to be the same thing as beating someone or fall
Right.
under that category.
Well, okay, so I read somewhere that historically it was not considered abuse if you physically hit somebody with a rod that was thinner than your thumb.
Rule of thumb. Okay.
The rule of thumb, which is where that phrase comes from, right? So,
Yeah.
yes, the definition of abuse has changed. It's changed wildly. I don't know when this was. It was probably before the 1800s, but but yeah, if you hit somebody with a rod that's less than the width of your thumb, that's not abuse. Could you imagine women today
Oh,
finding out, going back 300 years and they're getting hit with rods that are,
So wait,
inch.
Plutarch, do you think that's a good rule that you can't hit your wife with a switch or a rod that's bigger around than your thumb? Good or bad?
yes.
See, oh man, are you trying to
A
get me in
loaded
trouble here?
question.
I
If
was
you
gonna
say
say,
I can
yes,
give you an
it's
answer.
a
I
good
have a
rule.
wife.
Then
I can give-
then you're implying it's okay to hit your wife with that.
Yeah.
If you say no, then I could take a baseball bat to her.
um,
That's one of those loaded questions. I
I'll
just
answer
wanted to have some fun
I'll
with that.
answer the question as studying, reformers, Westminster divines, Puritans, et cetera, et cetera. My understanding of the Bible is though you don't physically discipline your wife. You know,
Right.
you can use words. You can cut her off from finances or put her on a stricter budget and stuff like that. But see, they would still call that abuse. But I think those are better ways of doing that than even the rule of thumb. I don't think that's a good thing to do.
Right. Well, but it is historical and it's fun to
It is
talk about it.
historical. Yeah.
And it's like that question. Have you stopped beating your wife yet?
Yeah. Right.
Gee.
Well, that they
Uh,
assume men are doing that, which gets us to the
Yes.
next point. So if women want to get out of a marriage and the being definitions for false DV or a DV keep changing, and the definitions of what abuse is, and they're associating it with like beating your wife. Doesn't it make it really easy for them to pull the trigger on the marriage? To press that nuclear button?
Well, yeah, obviously.
Oh, and these blue-pilled beta sims aren't making it any better. Now, let's go back to, it's interesting. See, this is where Rollo Tomasi's book, The Rational Male and Religion, is really helpful. This guy's not a theologian, yet he sees stuff that's going on. He quotes Dalrock's law of feminism. And it says, feminism is the assertion that men are evil and naturally want to harm women, followed by pleas to men to solve all women's problems. Page 140.
Well, the second half of that sentence is what Andrew Wilson keeps saying. Women require men to enforce the rules that the women want.
Oh, but they don't need no man.
Oh, they
They're
don't.
strong, independent women. They're empowered. They're free.
They're free.
He's saying mean things about me. Oh, help me.
Well, you wanted to be free and independent. I hereby grant you your independence and suffer the consequences of such.
Right. So feminism is man bad. So what do they do in the church but this, right? Something happens.
Remember that analogy I said, that question? Have you stopped beating your wife yet? Or is it okay to be, is the rule of thumb a good rule to apply to your wife? Well, it's kind of that loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, when a woman asserts abuse and it goes into the church and the church sees that, are they going to defend the man? Well, because defending the man, they perceive that as defending the right of a husband to abuse his wife. So they're not going to do that. There is just a deep core revulsion against a man who abuses a woman. So we can't even look into this. We just have to take her word and go with this. Otherwise, it's that yucky, just revulsive thing that we might be defending a man that abuses a woman. And that,
so we need to believe all
no
women,
one
right?
wants to do that.
So we need to believe all women. That's the Me Too movement that Rollo talks about. It says the
Right.
largely secular impetus of the Me Too women's movement is now finding its way into a religious environment that has been primed and ready for it, largely due to acquiescing, complicit, blue pill male leadership for a long time. Modern feminism was a natural fit for a feminine primary church that needed its push to consolidate power, even in the most patriarchal of religions.
Rollo with the W here, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, he's just noticing what's going on. He's making the connections.
That's a good observation.
Yep.
And you do see this in the church. We'll get to that. It's feminism as an invade, and with feminism, you have this emasculated, blue-pilled male leadership. They want I think they can have be the head of the household, have good amount of children, white picket fence, house paid for, blah 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 blah. But what happens is with feminism, you create these neutered blue pill men, and they need to make the women happy to try to fulfill their dreams, which doesn't work. And lastly, well, not quite lastly, now Rollo talks about the abuse, right? So on page 260, he speaks about, in this book on religion, the threat point of women upon men. Basically, the 800-pound gorilla of the unilateral divorce. On this threat point, he speaks about abuse, but ironically, it's the reverse is true to the men if we take the women's changing definitions of abuse.
Okay.
He writes, although abuse is the prime rationale women will cite as justification for initiating 70% of divorces, threat point isn't about women previously being trapped in abusive or dangerous marriages, but rather it's about how putting husbands in fear of divorce might tame potentially abusive husbands. They were looking for and found that changes in family law served as a marital sword of Damocles, dangling over husbands, causing them to intuitively assume their wife's authority in marriage out of fear of unilateral divorce.
Now this is interesting to me because in my divorce, I was the one who initiated. And I think she assumed that in fact, I don't think, I know because she said so. She assumed that I wouldn't be the one to catch her out. And this is that nuke button that we keep talking about. Well, if I do something wrong, she'll push the button and it'll be over.
Mm-hmm.
What I think the problem that women are running into today is that men, either one of two things happens. The men either realize by just looking around, hey, look, this marriage thing, it ain't working for us, and so they're not participating at all. Or the ones where the woman does use this threat of force against us, there comes a point, and there certainly did with me, where the man has to decide, am I going to continue to live this way or not?
Right. But blue-pilled men generally won't think of that.
Right. They will continue to debase themselves. And yes.
And what, like, for instance, when you filed, what did the church do?
Oh, so I was thinking about this, and the church at the institution didn't do much, but church, the body, the individual people, they all individually came up to me and asked me, well, what could you have done to prevent this from happening? And towards the end of it, I was just like, bitch, please. He went to go play tonsil hockey with another dude while I was at work. What was I supposed to do? I did everything. I did everything in your church blue pill handbook. Everything. I did the sappy love
I'm
songs.
sure it's
I
not
did
everything.
See, the man bad belief system surfaced.
Ah,
Yeah,
yes,
I'm sure it wasn't everything. There must have been something that you did wrong. We just can't identify.
Yeah, they could not identify it. They spent 6 weeks trying to identify it, and they couldn't. And the only reason it was 6 weeks is because I stopped going. But yeah, it was there. It's like they accepted that she cheated, and they did rightly say, well, that's not good. But then it's like, okay, we got the pro forma acknowledgments of the situation out of the way. Now, what can we do to fix you?
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah, because I got some similar stories too, and I'm sure Steve does too.
Well, okay, on this, I think I can bring this up here.
Okay.
This this theme is the woman really having de facto control. So in the church, the man is encouraged or told that he needs to lead her. But leading her means leading her where she wants to go. So he's got to figure out where she wants to go and lead her there so he can pretend to lead her as a godly man would. And if she's not following, well, obviously he's wrong because he didn't lead her where she wants to go. Is this making any sense to you, Nick?
Oh yeah, blue-pilled emasculated leadership. It's not really leadership, it's rulership. They have rule. A head has rule and authority. Not just, oh, I'm gonna servant leadership. I'm gonna sacrifice for your every desire, honey.
So is he abusing her if he doesn't lead her where she wants to go?
For the women, yes. Any exercise of
Absolutely.
authority is abuse.
And then, this is the non-exercise of authority. He's not leading her where she wants to go, so she'll contrive an excuse
Mm.
and a justification to tell the church, well, he wasn't being a godly leader.
So Steve,
Because there's abuse of he wasn't praying enough with the family.
Oh.
He didn't take us to church every week. He didn't
Uh-huh.
religiously educate the children. Those are not abusive things, but it's abuse of not leading her where she wanted to go. It's the post hoc fallacy?
I
Oh.
think that's correct. And Steve, what I'm hearing you say is it's abuse when you lead, when you rule, when you say we're going this way, but it's also abuse when you don't do that in the direction that she wants to go. So I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and so meanwhile, since you're emasculated, she's probably drying up, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
And then you're being a servant leader, trying to lead her, being the nice, simp, blue-pilled guy that the church is counseling you to do, right? Oh, you
And
just need to
they
do this. And then she can use that later against you.
Yeah, it turns her panties from New Mexico into the Sahara Desert.
Oh, yeah, but can't they use that later in court and try to imply that you were doing something wrong?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
No.
because at this point, all you want and all you're bugging her about is having sex. And so all you see her as is a sexual object. And it's making her feel, not like a human because
Well,
that's all he cares about. And so obviously he's not loving, and that's abusive too.
And then
isn't seeing somebody as a sexual object, isn't that a form of what's the R word we're not supposed to use?
oh my
Right?
gosh.
If I objectify you, so when I am only asking for sex, well, that's I'm not interested in you as a person. So clearly that must be the
And you
R
wonder what
stuff.
you wonder why a lot of the married men turn to OnlyFans and porn. It's sinful. It's like, hey, at least I can objectify someone.
Well, let me talk about this objectification. Women claim they don't want to be seen as a sexual object, but then they use all this makeup and everything and post
Mhm.
pictures online and whatnot to be seen and praised as a sexual object.
See, they don't want to be objectified by the creeper. That's why they want the bear. But hey, they'll be objectified by Brad Pitt or Leo, right?
Oh, and they will they will not be dry in that case.
Oh, interesting. So, and once they get to that point, you have this part of the threat point and abuse, right? Rollo talks about this is really about husbands living in fear of their wife becoming unhappy and he's pulling the pin on their family. In fact, so endemic is this threat point that counseling, therapy, and entertainment businesses have been developed on it. One of the most prominent themes in women's entertainment is the divorce porn concept of the empowerment women experience from frivolously divorcing. We can find these diverse divorce porn themes in faith-based entertainment and women's ministry messages.
Okay, Nick, I'm guessing you have something on this women's ministry messages point. I'm just
Oh my
guessing here.
gosh. They're like, Oh, you appeal to your feelings. Oh, I was just in an abusive relationship. But oh, my knight in shining armor came by, and you can find your knight in shining armor too.
You're missing something.
What am I missing?
She just had to leave
Ah.
to go on a journey to find
Find
herself.
yourself.
And it was a struggle.
Eat, pray, love. Is that
Rollo does reference that. I just left that out in the quote. So
okay?
yeah, where the ... is. Yep, that's where he talks about eat, pray, love.
No,
So.
yes, okay.
All
I just want to put that back in there.
right.
Hey,
Yeah.
you gotta listen. You gotta listen to those key words when a woman starts talking about find herself, journey, and struggle. You know, it's a narrative when she starts using those words.
Now, is this really about hypergamy, or is this more about rebellion? Because it seems to be like I want feminism. Feminism is rebellion. Rebellion emasculates men, and they're frustrated because they have emasculated men, even though they want what God designed them to be, a masculine man in charge. They can't conceptually allow that because of their rebellion, and therefore they rebel sexually. They rebel, and they pull the pin while fantasizing about these things. And they go through counseling, therapy, and entertainment, things that won't heal your marriage. And there's a whole porn industry. You know, there's the romance novels, there's the divorce porn, there's Eat, Pray, Love.
Well, this is a kind of,
And it's in the church.
But this hypergamy or rebellion, we're gonna have to go into that.
Yeah.
With a complete discussion of that for the full theme, the full pod stream. But my belief is that hypergamy is a subset of rebellion. The umbrella is rebellion, and rebellion certainly results in hypergamy in maybe even the majority of the cases, but not 100%. So yes, it's rebellion, but it can also be hypergamy.
So Nick, I have a question for you.
Okay.
This is something that I've been thinking about, and I could be off base, maybe not. But I've actually started to view these romance porn novels as worse than the actual pornography, not because I think that pornography is great, but pornography at least comes with a social stigma.
Right.
These porn novels do not, and so women have there's no stigma against reading them. There's no sort of social or cultural thing that says, well, this really is taboo. This really is something you shouldn't be doing.
Them and all their friends share it, and they have the Christianized version romance novels.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting now with the iPhone, right? And the Kindles. You can be reading this and they don't know. Everybody else around you won't even know what you're reading.
Yeah.
Well, it's a long lasting the divorce porn or romance novels promote a fantasy existence that might be true. So I think that sticks with them even longer than compared to a man viewing visual images of a naked woman in pornography.
Well,
Then,
for men doing that,
after that, he gets the post nut clarity.
Okay, and then it's
let's,
over.
Let's break this down. What are the problems with men viewing pornography? And we'll compare it.
Okay.
I didn't prepare for this. So, okay, rewires man's brain. He objectifies women as lust. His problems, it can create, heard from like the Red Pill guys, problems getting it up when you're with a woman. It can perhaps create unrealistic expectations.
And
It
it
can.
reduces his desire for the woman after he relieves himself with porn. So he just withdraws, but she didn't get any attention. He's
Right.
not going to pursue women. He's not even going to care about his wife if he's
It's
doing
pacifying.
that kind of thing. Yeah, yes, exactly. That's the word.
So it's sinful. It's like a form of, it's not adultery per se, but it's under that category. He's not being faithful to his wife, and he's lusting after another woman that's not his. It's covetous. And there's all those other things that happen, and
Well, all
but
this just it's getting in the way of him being a good husband.
does it completely
And
ruin a
being
marriage? I mean, does it usually completely ruin a marriage?
Oh, that's an interesting question, though, because based on the usage numbers, the metrics that we get, clearly only if the woman decides that it should ruin the marriage.
Oh, interesting.
Because
or are men doing it because the marriage is already ruined because they're being denied? Probably both. But
are
I'm
the
sure there's
usage
both.
metrics
Probably
won't
both.
tell you that, won't tell you what's going on there, but we know that just but just on the volumes of it, watch that there is no way that porn usage is not entirely endemic to marriages. It just can't. It can't be single guys.
Well, for instance, they've said 95% of men have viewed porn, which stands to reason that then probably a similar above 90% of marriage of men have viewed porn while they're in their marriage.
Yep.
But 90% of marriages do not fail. So therefore, I don't think it destroys all marriages where the man uses porn. I'm not condoning its use, but you understand where I'm.
Yeah. I don't think
I'm
it's as
trying to
destructive.
analyze this.
Now, divorce porn, how destructive is that?
We don't
know.
have any data on this. There's
Well,
no
the
data on it.
divorce porn, not only just like the nasty, like 50 Shades of Grey stuff, but particularly the fantasy of leaving your man.
Or the fantasy that there is a better man out there.
And so you're already contemplating so they're in their mind, it's already implanted the idea of leaving their husband. They're entertaining that delusion.
Maybe, but let's not even take it that far. She's reading this fantasy novel of some man who is way more exciting in this story, this whole fictional fantasy world, and my man isn't doing that. So she loses her respect and desire for her man, and even her willingness to do her duties to serve him. And it can snowball from there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have no data on this.
And
no
you
one's
never
gonna
will.
study this.
Yeah, you never will, and it would all be self-reported anyway. So it'd be super easy to question it.
Well, how
But
much exposure to this seed in their minds will corrupt them? I think it's a terrible seed to put in a woman's mind, the fantasy of leaving their husband.
Or just the fantasy that, even if it's not specifically leaving, just the fantasy that a more exciting guy exists out there. I mean, just because it feeds into the innate female hypergamy.
Right, but it's also
more than that.
But they have to commit to leaving their husband first.
Sure,
Women
not
like excitement and drama.
Yeah.
Okay, their desire for excitement and drama is even different than rebellion and hypergamy.
Mm-hmm.
Women create drama and excitement and all that, so they have that desire for emotional stimulation. I mean, sometimes a wife will pick a fight with her husband because she just needs some emotional stimulation.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, is that hypergamy? Is that rebellion? Or is that just her nature?
So what we're really saying is that in both cases, these pornographies appeal to the base nature of the man or of the man or the woman.
Mhm.
But in the case of male sort of preference pornography, you've got the post nut clarity. It is a short term thing, but these women are when they're viewing their pornography, they are. I mean, these stories are far more encompassing. Porn is not particularly imaginative because it doesn't need to be. But these stories, they're creating these whole new worlds that these women get to live in, and they can spend and it can turn into a book series. So you can spend years on the same story.
That's
So you're
destructive.
saying
Utterly
it's
destructive for the
immersive.
family.
Yes, it's all encompassing. Where porn, you close the browser, it goes away. Most guys do it at night, according to the data we have. So you go to bed, okay, and you wake up the next day. You go to work, and the work factor there too probably matters some because guys still have to produce. So guys can't get as immersed in the world as these women. They can just sit at home, read their novels all day, pile through an entire series, and they've literally lived an entire life as this other character. Because we know that women put themselves, when women read a novel, they put themselves as the main character. We know that.
Well, let me point something else out when we're talking about immersive. I think this might be a factor in the OnlyFans phenomenon because, well, we've heard recently that it's mostly married men doing that. And there's a lot of personal interactions with these people, whether it's real or it's employees or even men that are talking back and forth. They are texting back and forth. It's not just viewing, it's communications throughout the day. And that's even more dangerous because it's
That is dangerous.
introducing the immersive element to the male side.
Yeah, that's
yes, it
dangerous.
is.
I agree with you. That's
Yep.
dangerous.
So it's really bad, really bad. Don't want to do that because
immersive is bad.
Now you are focusing on another woman immersively in interacting with her instead of just using her as a gratification object. It's man, I never thought about that till I just realized that through the course of our discussion here.
That could be a good topic to dive into. Yeah, later podcast. So
Yeah.
Hey, this is why people should watch our streams because we come up with things during the course of the stream that we never thought before.
yeah, I wonder if anybody studied we don't have long-term effects or I really want to look up that. That'd be an interesting topic to look up.
The long-term effects of OnlyFans,
or short term, like versus ordinary pornography and all that stuff.
A lot of these things
we could
they
do.
won't study.
I know, but if we had the study, we could on the OnlyFans side, because it deals with men, we might be able to convince them to do it. You could take that and extrapolate it to women too. Just how if it's that destructive for men, then the immersive worlds problem for women is just it's going to be worse.
Probably. I would at that point OnlyFans. I think that's you're doing adultery in my understanding. So,
I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
So Nick, are we still on track with our?
Yeah, we did take
Sorry
take
about
a
that, guys.
detour, but it's important. We had a lot of brainstorming going on there that we didn't expect. So, all right. So, abuse, man, bad, and the divorce porn, where they can escape this abusive man, whatever they want that to mean, as a grounds to leave and detonate the marriage. But apparently it's not just relegated to secularism, it's also in the church. Really interesting. So we talked about abuse, we've talked about Me Too, feminism. man bad and the simps that promote it. So this will get a little more personal to me and the stuff I interacted with when I was a minister in the OPC, Orthodox Presbyterian Church, when I dealt with the Jezebel there, which we talked about in the earlier podcast. Let me find the window. Boomer moment. Okay. Here we go. So this is, I think, in 2021, if I'm remembering correctly. It says, this is a plea for my denomination to hire professionals on spiritual abuse. From where I'm standing, I can tell you that the OPC is not safe for many. Please let that sink in. I am saying the church is not safe, and talks about an open letter on abuse. Spiritual abuse. See, no, it's not safe
Ooh,
because
what is spiritual abuse?
interesting. That's an interesting concept. I think it's ever changing for whoever states it, especially for women.
Okay? I'll ask a different question. Is spiritual abuse using the Bible to tell women that their behavior is bad?
Probably for her, yeah. That's not what it is. You know, it'd be abuse of your office. That's would be classically. It'd be an abuse of your office.
So
And-
using your office for financial or sexual gain or
imposing laws and strictures that the Bible does not give you authority to do.
Okay.
Or wielding your office in a way, you know, that church discipline and stuff that's not lawful to get what you want. So but it's spiritual abuse and it's not safe. So
Well, safe is a leftist word. I feel attacked, so it's not safe here. And holding up safety as the highest of standards and the highest of goals. The church is not safe, folks. Jesus is not safe.
Well, wait, isn't the church supposed to be a safe space? I mean, wasn't that a theme we heard about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that universities needed to put in these safe spaces
Mm-hmm.
where people could go in and pet dogs and cats, and they'd have crayons and coloring books, so you could just chill out, and they'd have soothing music. Hey, I got an idea, Nick.
what's that?
If these women need a safe space in the church, why don't you just send them down to the nursery room?
That's a good idea.
Oh, but then you're objectifying them. That's the patriarchy. How dare you?
No, I'm not objectifying them. I'm infantile.
No, you're saying that they're not welcome in the
Infantilizing them.
church and that you have to have a distinct space for the women, that they belong nursing.
No, if they just need a safe space where they can go and calm down, then they can come back. It's just like a kid who throws a tantrum. You take them out for a while, and
but that would be imposing patriarchy.
Come back in.
Oh, so imposing patriarchy is spiritual abuse, right?
Yeah.
So saying anything that's against women is abuse, or saying something they don't like, or restricting them,
sending them away
is abuse. Or even if you do abuse your office, right? What they're doing is saying you're not safe. You're like this physical predator type thing. And so you can start labeling even ministers who, they wrongfully use their office and probably might be, worth defrocking them. It could be that bad, or suspending them. But now you've labeled them as an abuser.
Yeah, this is a goofy thing, because we don't even need the concept spiritual abuse. If he did something wrong, we already have terms for that. So you don't need to invent a new term. It's kind of like hate crimes. It was a crime first, and now you're ascribing a greater motive to put a bigger penalty. We don't really need the term hate crime because it was already a crime. You can evaluate that crime and the circumstances by what that surrounded it in order to determine the sentence if the man is guilty. You know what I mean? You don't need to escalate it to a new category.
So
That
I want to
doesn't further
explain this.
justice.
I want to explain this a little bit. And this is something that you see all over the place. And these are what we call container words or container phrases. They have no objective definition. And what that means is that the person can put into that word or phrase whatever they need it to mean at that moment. So it's a container for whatever they need it to be. And so spiritual abuse is a container phrase for the church isn't giving me what I think it should be giving me, so church bad.
Oh, man bad.
Ah, yes.
Because it's
Well,
the men teaching, right?
yes. The
And
church
so
is
what's
bad.
so like
the
for her,
men's
they're
bad.
telling her to shut up. They're telling her teaching's wicked, that she's a Jezebel and wolf, and she is. And so, and they're telling women, they're trying to restore the patriarchy, telling them, you don't need to do your stupid crap that you've been doing. Go home, take care of your kids. You don't need to be leading conferences and teaching in seminaries. We don't want you there. We don't need you instructing presbyteries. Go home, right? Shut up, go home, take care of your husband. So she's like, by posting after guys went after her because she's teaching some crap. My serious concern, right? Those are keywords. I'm concerned and serious concern over abuse and abusive teaching. And talks about the violence, right? She calls it the teaching is violence, abusive.
Well, this is again an appropriation of leftist linguistics.
Right.
Anything I don't like or makes me feel bad is physical violence upon my person.
And he had a good.
Well, that's evidence of abuse. If it's violent, it's evidence of abuse.
Right.
Like Colonel Buckshot says, when women cry abuse whenever a man tries to exert some degree of authority and control over them.
Yes, that's what this is.
Yep. And you wouldn't imagine all the traction this Jezebel got. Oh, but it gets better. Where we go? There you go. Where we go? Oh, here we go. Now we start. Now she reveals the cards, right? Talks about women, personal actions, and systemic. You see the word systemic, race. She goes from race to women to systemic. And then she talks about Beth Moore departure because she was being a Jezebel. Beth Moore in the SBC, being a women pastor and preacher.
Well, so this construction on this top tweet here is straight out of the feminist, intersectional feminist playbook.
Yeah, critical theory as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, the construction is she's not even interesting or creative in her construction. You start with some sort of overarching, the most important thing, and that's of course race. Race is, the race is over everything.
So
and
this
then,
is right after the BLM and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And then of course we need to intersect that with women. And by proving that there's an intersection of this problem between race and women, we can prove that that whatever we label follows systemic, that this thing is systemic. So there is systemic sinfulness because there's an intersection of hurt here on race, towards certain races, and of course women. So you have to pump up your intersectionality score here.
So it's abuse to not, follow the latest systemic oppression and abuse, right?
Hold on. It's systemic.
Systemic. Yeah.
Which means you're abusing her even if you don't know it because you're part of the system.
Yep.
So you can
a man
can be bad and abusive even if he doesn't know it and it's not willful. You see?
There it is. Man bad.
Uh-huh. And the heads roll in the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. Abuse, they're mean. They say mean things about me, man. Bad. How dare anybody try to hold me accountable? Oh, they didn't go through the right bureaucratic process. Meanwhile, have your corruption, you basically infiltrating all
Okay.
parts of the church. Yeah,
But
hey, they're bad.
okay, that phrase in there up above, a woman who speaks the truth. Just because a woman speaks, is it truthful? Is there
No.
any evidence? Or is it just, I'm speaking, believe me, believe all women?
Pretty much, me too. Believe all women. That's
Well,
a lot.
that phrase is specifically constructed to, if you try and call her on this, she'll say, no, that's not what I said. But the way the phrase is constructed, you're supposed to assume that women speak the truth. To any woman who speaks the truth. Well, how do I know that the woman is speaking the truth? Well, that's not defined in here. So by implication, all women are speaking the truth. Because that's the only definition I have of who might be speaking the truth is women.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, because the men are bad, so any woman who speaks is obviously good if the men are bad.
Yep. And now you see these men are actually effeminate, and one was a former, I think both might be homosexual. I'm not sure. I know one was a former homosexual. See what they say?
Yeah, that's pandering.
Oh.
Full
simp
pandering.
Simps.
Simp.
I read that and go, yeah, it should be.
Oh, here we go.
Tolerance is a virtue, don't you know?
Here we go. More of this. Here we go. I like this one. So that
systemic
guy,
complicity.
The guy she references, he went after me a bunch too. So he's one of the white knights. He's one of the do nothing effeminate bureaucrats. Even though he can be accused kind of me in some ways, but I still think he's white knighting, and therefore he's being an effeminate bureaucrat in what he does. So, unwillingness to listen to those in their denomination and to confront abuse and their systemic complicity to it. And let's be clear, this isn't the only officer in their presbytery. That's the presbytery that got rid of Michael Spangler, who has publicly called me Jezebel of Thyatira and a raging wolf. Well, if the shoe fits, because she is both. The truth hurts, honey.
Well,
but I'm abusive.
And in this case, she's walking in with the presumption that what she's saying is not just true. It's doctrinally correct. So what she's really saying is, if you don't accept my view prima facie, which is a legal term, it just without, the legal term when a lawyer says, look, the evidence speaks for itself. My position speaks for itself. You don't question it. You can't question this. Okay.
Because men bad.
Because men are bad. I don't have to justify myself to do this. It's simply, you have to accept this because clearly the evidence is all around us that this is true.
Well, see, the man bad thing leads to the sin of tolerating Jezebels. If you have a man bad belief system, you're going to end up tolerating Jezebels, the sin talked about in Revelation chapter 2. Because you won't confront women.
Yeah. And people who do confront women like this get their heads lopped off for their efforts.
Yep. Oh, interesting connection there. Oh, here, this is one of this is the whole world, the whole critical theory and stuff starts getting into even Bible interpretation. So it doesn't just stay like sociologically, it screws up your theology. So it infects everything. So David and Bathsheba. So this is Sam Powell. He was an RCUS pastor. I don't know if he still is. He has this terrible exegesis, but he's also a simp. So he's bought into the man bad belief system. And so he talked about David and Bathsheba, and he called it RAPE. So we have a word for this. It's called
Grape.
yeah.
The sour
Yeah.
grapes.
Now she's demanding this exegesis. Pastors who exegete this passage need to say it. Why?
So she gets to determine how pastors speak on a passage now.
Yeah. It's the fempowerment. Empowering our daughters and then sons is that added at the end. Yeah. She gave
Women
the game-
first.
Yeah, empower.
Do
daughters.
sons need to be empowered?
No.
Well, you could make an argument that in the modern day, men need to be empowered, but that's a whole different rabbit trail to go down.
Oh yeah. So this stuff, guys, don't think it just affects your relationships in the church. Don't think that it's just that the church is just gonna keep maintaining simping and the blue pilling sociological externally, right? These are external things. I mean, it does affect you internally and its repercussions in your life, but vertically, it has a vertical dimension with God. It starts messing with your theology, where you say crazy things like this because you've so bought into the man bad narrative. Essentially, feminism as the prevailing theology and religion instead of Christianity.
Well, I think what you're saying is feminism is in the air we breathe.
Yeah.
And when women come into male spaces and the leadership in the church is really a male space, they bring the foul air of feminism in.
They do. Because that's what it is. If you introduce females into leadership, you're already introducing feminism.
Well, but even with the blue pill and the white knighters, they're introducing it too because they're so weak they can't do it on their own, but they import a woman, she does it, and then they all bend the knee and support her doing it. So,
Yeah, but you've noticed groups of men. You can just take 10 men, average men, and out of those 10 men, one or two are going to be more dominant and not be swayed.
yes.
And another 8 guys will be at various degrees, and you'll have a couple really simps in the group, but they can't really do much damage. Those guys, they just kind of fall in line with a hierarchy. Now you take any one of those men out and put a woman into the group, and holy shit, do the conditions change. Everybody acts differently. Some are out to cozy up to her, but she starts tone policing, and the whole dynamic changes because a woman is in a male space, and that's what's happening here.
Yep. And they're getting in the male space, this independent organization so it failed initially to get this independent organization to investigate churches. So like they're saying the church can't even investigate abuse, but then you have this organization that defines abuse in all sorts of crappy ways that include like feminists like Diane Langberg and others and people associated with the LGBT movement or LGB, whatever movement.
As
They want
Joker would
these-
say, the
they want-
LGHDTV.
Yeah, so they wanted to bring Bird, this lady, this Jezebel, and others wanted to bring in this GRACE organization to make their claims and investigations and use their terms, not biblical terms, not traditional terms.
I'm guessing
then-
these are leftist terms.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So not only are you abandoning your own authority, you're being effeminate as a church body, not being able to do what you're designed to do, but then you're allowing the enemy in to destroy you. You have to be freaking retarded. Because you've so bought into man bad belief system, you're going to destroy. It's self-destructive.
Well, and what could this thing, this organization, is
Yeah.
being brought in to run an assessment of who?
The denomination and specific churches, abuse problems that may exist within it.
So the leadership of the denomination.
Yeah,
primarily.
the motion eventually failed. So he's talking about how it failed in the General Assembly. But the
Okay.
issue hasn't gone away.
Okay.
those
So
things.
the motion was to bring this outside group in
Right.
to assess these purported problems in the denomination.
Right.
Okay, so you're going to spend large sums of money. Well,
Mhm.
there's a fun fact about this that we see all sorts of places, secular and not, where if you pay for something, they will give you a result. And if you pay for something from a specific institution that only focuses on one thing, they will find, whether it's real or
Whether
not,
it's real or not.
they will find something. And then,
Uh-huh.
of course, they can beat you over the head with it to get you to change.
So if you hire an outside organization to help you deal with abuse, they will find abuse so they can help you deal with it.
Hey, got to get those dollars.
Yeah. And so you can read some of this. I'm not trying to spend too much time on this, but I'm just trying to show you, what this is. So Boz Chichevin was the founder. And they showed deeply, wrong theology and Christology. Then you have others like him, like Chichevin approving of this right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the guy who started this thing is pro Skittles. Okay.
Yeah. And then there's the feminist OPCer, Dr. Diane Langbird, who instructs presbyteries and stuff like that, and denies headship in creation and thinks that it's just a curse of the fall, and talks much about spiritual abuse and blah blah blah. She wants the toe down rule, the servant leadership type stuff.
Okay.
And then this
Well,
guy
now-
actually did something good. He says, our adversary, this guy was an OPCer, right? A minister, Mike Myers. Make sure I got his name right. I think I did. Yep. And he says, our adversary, the devil, prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking whom may devour, seeking to destroy Christ's church. Do not be ignorant of his devices. Guarding the government in order that Christ is established in his church is no insignificant task. It is something to which all my fellow officers and I have taken solemn vows before God.
Let me point out something else here. Nick and I are in disagreement over sola scriptura, but we're
Right.
still good friends.
Right.
So Nick believes, the Bible has, that's a Protestant belief. Okay, where does the Bible say we need to bring in an outside organization? But
Nowhere.
Mike Myers also appealed to kind of the traditions of management of the church and the hierarchy of the church and said we don't need this. So I'm not going to get into that debate here, but even the tradition of the management of the church, which has merit, even if you choose to say it doesn't have authority, or the Bible, you don't need women coming in or outside organizations coming in to inform you about what you should do. Would you agree, Nick?
No, you don't need them coming in. There's no need for them. They can go take a hike, you know. They have no reason to exist besides taking money and being a leftist political arm to corrupt the church and destroy the church. An
So
entity.
she said there's this systemic problem. Okay, if there is, shouldn't she be able to bring forth a case to the church leaders and say, hey, you guys, you men, there's a systemic problem here. Please do an investigation and determine if there is a systemic problem. And
Look,
if so, manage it,
let's put it this
deal with
way.
it.
Abuse is always going to exist this side of heaven, even in the church. Should it? No, but men and women are both sinful. And they've had this problem. You can see probably in the church fathers, if I recall. You see it talked about, I know, in the Reformers, Westminster Vines. You see it talked about all the way up to this day. You still have this reality of women beating men and men beating women.
Man,
You're
you seem
not
to be
gonna
saying,
fix it. You're not.
Nick froze. Or maybe I froze.
No, you didn't freeze. He froze.
Oh, okay. So, gee, Nick seems to be saying that the church is full of sinners. Other people would tend to have us believe the church is full of saints. I I don't think that's true. I think they're full of sinners. People are people. Uh, you know, there's among these
Sorry, guys.
the church people, they like to promote the idea that the prevalence of divorce and abuse and these bad behaviors are 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 lesser inside the church than outside the church. The church people are better than those secular people. I really, there's been studies on that, but I haven't observed much difference. How about you, Nick?
I don't know because I don't know what they mean by abuse anymore. They think systemic abuse because all these women have these stories to get out of their marriages. And you know what? Some of them might be true. I bet you a lot of them are a bunch of crap or way over exaggerated. But you're always going to have this problem in and out of the church because sin remains.
Well, Nick, I think you said something key there. The existence of these stories, whether true or not, because we believe all women, paints a picture that even if the story's not true, well, we have to believe all women, so all these stories must be true. So there really must be something systemic going on because see all these stories.
But it's
It's
interesting.
self-referential.
You don't hear the stories of men, even though statistics show that more men are abused
Well,
in relationships than I don't remember if it's relationships or marriages. Then
It's
but we're not
more,
taught to believe
there's
all men.
more physical abuse of women against men than men against women. That's studies show that. But at the same time, other studies show men are worse because there is more reports and crimes and arrests of men. Women are not arrested, and men are really reluctant to report that, and they
and
can easily dismiss it too.
see,
But
this is what I'm trying to get to.
women do
Right
get physical in against a man at a very high rate.
Yeah, I know. It happened to me. It happened to you. It's happened to several people that I've known about, and I've heard so many stories that aren't out in the public. If you sit down with some of these people in and out of the church, that had some relation to the church. Either they're still going and they heard about, they have a family member that it happened to, or they're still going to church, or you meet somebody that used to go to church and this is why he's not going to church anymore, is they're not believed. These men are not believed because man bad, somehow their fault. And their stories are generally not publicized. They're not made public like on all these girls' blogs. There's abuse in the church. Oh, here's another case. Here's another case. Here's another case. There's not that. Like I had like it happened to me. It happened to another minister I know.
Yes. Okay. Even a man who tries to defend himself and put the truth out there. How far does that take it? Does anybody believe him?
And no one cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody
Society
cares.
doesn't care about men. So it's
Never
like,
has.
oh, that happened. And that's just reality. But I want to point out the truth. I'm not trying to get sympathy and care, but I want people to understand so they can make better decisions and with the truth instead of the lies that have been spread.
Well, let me add on to that. I'm not looking for any sympathy.
Right.
I just want these things to be recognized, because when this kind of stuff happens, the man is taken out of the picture. That's one less family raised by a father. Men need to be raising their children and be involved in their children's lives. And all this kind of allegations of abuse reduce the authority of the father, and oftentimes it's on the way to getting him out of their lives. And that's bad for the kids. That is true abuse of children.
Yeah. And then then single mothers raise a generation of more degenerates.
Right. That goes back to the law enforcement stream we did a couple weeks ago.
And it also goes back to the quote by Dabney that we read.
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, our streams are a tapestry. If you listen to all of them, you will see how these concepts just kind of weave themselves together. They're not standalone. Well, they can be standalone, but
sorry, gentlemen, you're gonna have to work for this.
So, guys, I'm gonna now tell a few stories.
Okay.
So I had a story from he was an elder at a church I went to in college. I had visited my college towns a few hours from where I work. I had some good fellowship with some friends there, and we were talking about these stories, and it involved some people that I was familiar with, and this church, and there's this couple that were married, and another couple had listened in. They said that they are infected with the wokeism, the critical theory, which feminism, a form of feminism. Believe all women, and they're like, oh, that sounds like abuse. So they got involved and got an elder involved in the church to help set this woman up in another house. They used church funds to set up this woman to get away from her husband on allegations of abuse. And it went to court, right? All that stuff was proven to be false. After this guy's life was destroyed, right? And they used church funds and all this energy and attention directed to this guy who did nothing. Eventually the woman left the church, right? And then the elder that helped them, he married her a year later.
What do you want?
The ladies rejected ladies of the church rejected the elder.
Well, and what do you want to bet that she had designs on the elder the whole time?
Uh-huh. So there's stories like this. And they can make abuse to be anything, right? They can make up the whole thing, or, hey, maybe he grabbed her. Let's just say, for the sake, he shook her a little bit. Yeah, it could technically fall under today's version of domestic violence, but is that grounds of divorce? Hell no. Is it wrong? Yeah. But
Well, let me
now
ask
let's
something else, Nick. Once the allegation is made, is anybody at all concerned with investigating and listening to his side and his facts to see if this thing is even plausible? Because lots of times a man can say, well, gee, her allegations aren't even plausible.
right.
But do they even care enough to consider?
Oh, I'll weave my own story into this. So there's a few things. Sometimes women can think it through. Usually they plan this stuff out. They construct a story, a narrative that's they can somewhat believe or convince themselves to believe before they pull the trigger and do the allegations. For me, she was planning all this stuff ahead of time, had constructed a history, and it made sense in her head that wasn't factual. Was speaking with the sisterhood, the Uber allies, as Rollo would say, the pastors' wives, my friends' wives, had constructed this whole thing about me. I knew nothing about it. I had suspicions, like there's something going on. You know, she probably was tired of me. She didn't like the patriarchy. She didn't like that I was starting to hold her accountable. She didn't like that I was starting to work out because I got really fat. But, she had a history of beating me. And I told no one. No one knew. Because I didn't want people to know that I'm getting beat by my wife. I didn't want to throw her under the bus. I didn't want to cause problems. Yeah, I probably feared for my job a little bit. And it's embarrassing for a man to admit that he's getting beat by a woman. And I'm a big guy. So anyway, so I got beat, right? I get thrown in jail under accusations of me doing something to her, which didn't happen. It was the opposite. I did what I normally did, ran away. I had guns even pulled on me. It was crazy in the church. I thought I was going to die, but I got out, and the church immediately sent a letter making false accusations against me and lies. And they had to retract it after advice from other members of my presbytery. I had many men slander me, throw me under the bus. But I will say this, there were a few men in my presbytery, and I'm still friends with them. Not everybody in the Orthodox Presbyterian Church is bad. There's some good men there. It's just full of really bad ones as well. And they actually listened, and they gave me information. And come to find out, they had family members that went through the same crap.
Yeah.
That had suffered the same lies. And so I had some really good men give me good advice and counsel me. Some didn't totally abandon me, but a lot did. My mentor later said, "Oh, you're not a victim at all. You just need to get over this. It's the kids who really suffer." I'm like, I'm not denying the kids suffer, but how dare you say, hey, I didn't get beat. I'm just not taking responsibility for my situation. And one of my best friends, his wife was plotting with my wife, and they were talking shit behind my back. He says, "You weren't preaching this happened because you weren't preaching the gospel. You're doing about patriarchy." No compassion. Others, "Oh, well, you just weren't praying enough. Oh, you're in sin." But some did come to my aid, especially I can think of the people at Hamel Orthodox Presbyterian Church, Archibald Allison, and Michael Spengler. Some good men, good advice. We don't always agree on everything. But the overall response is, man bad. Somehow you did something wrong, even if you weren't the abuser. Somehow you're at fault. You're sinning.
Let me point out something about men who come to the aid of other men. Those are also typically the guys who you have a friendship with and who will call you out when you
Yeah.
need to be called out.
They do call me.
They will challenge you. So
Yes.
they are not simping. They're not just coming, oh, yeah, we're going to support you. No, they're the same guys who are going to call you out when you're screwing up. And that's why you respect them, because these men have integrity. But the majority of people don't. And a lot of men develop this understanding over time because they're observant. And things like this have happened in their life, personally or either to people they know. It causes them to question their beliefs and to choose in the past and see the implications and how it all works out. And they are men who evaluate their principles and what they believe in. And they're through the soul searching, they decide, yeah, whatever the cost, I will defend someone wrongly accused. And I will tell someone, a friend, that he's wrong,
Right.
because that's my principle. And I'm doing this out of compassion because I need to correct my brother, because I want my brother or sister to end up in heaven.
Right.
Out of compassion for them, I will correct them. I won't just pander to them and their feelings, because their feelings, that's not true compassion. Looking out for the future and their ultimate salvation and relationship with God oftentimes requires correction. This is a thought or a
Man, it's good thoughts from a
belief that
Catholic. Who
has
knew?
not been. It's just absent from the world these days. What'd you say, Nick?
It's like, it's hard to believe I have some good thoughts from a Catholic. Man, the world's coming to an end. I'm sorry.
Oh, you know what? You might as well call me a damn papist.
Oh, there we go.
Well, and there's another thing that Steve, yeah, we were talking a couple days ago about this. Men are always correcting other men, and I don't know. Well, maybe the blue pill simps would, but real men, they seek out men who will challenge them, and it could be on anything. I don't want to be around men who just agree with me on everything. I don't need yes men in my life.
Right.
We were having, the three of us were having a text storm last night on a topic that will not get into publicly because Steve and Nick, and I disagreed on something, and here we are today, yucking it up. Why? Because even though we might disagree on that thing, we realize that, we agree on a lot of other things and we can have a productive conversation. I don't want to be around men who agree with me on everything.
And we were having fun verbally
I know.
sparring.
Oh, yeah, we
Oh,
were.
yeah. It's
Oh,
fun. They could see my blood boil over text over
Yeah,
something that I can't change.
And I could see Steve egging you on there. And of course I'm nerding out, and so yeah, but that's, it wouldn't be worth the effort to just have a bunch of dudes who don't care. And that's really what it is. If they won't challenge you, they don't care about you.
Yeah.
Plus, if you're not challenged, life is boring.
Yep.
Well, we're coming up on an hour and a half.
So guys, any
we better
closing
not make
thoughts?
these streams go too long.
Yeah, we seem to be hitting an hour and a
Closing
half a
thoughts,
lot.
guys. Closing
We do.
thoughts. Any summation and closing thoughts then. Let's land the plane, as they say.
Well, yeah, I do. Okay, we have a handful of people watch us. We have potentially a handful of a bigger name influencers that watch us. It's really difficult. If you're just coming in to want timestamps and where's the good stuff? You're just surfing. And really, you kind of need to just stick around for the whole thing. And if you want to surf information in the world and then go on and pontificate about it, you don't really have a command for what you're talking about.
All right.
Yeah, we have a lot of hours on our channel already, but note how we keep referring back to prior streams. We are building a cohesive, I don't want to say story because it's not a story. We're building cohesive observations and then trying to tack solutions and weave them into these observations, because just observing isn't enough. We got to do more.
Yeah, but listen to our streams and think. Because we're kind of suggesting some things that could happen. But no, we're laying a foundation of understanding for future men to understand, current men in positions where you can do something. If you have a greater understanding, you're going to make a better decision.
So
And
hopefully you guys now know what the man bad church belief system is. It's a feminist syncretism that seeks to devour traditional Christianity, which is the patriarchy, a patriarchal system as taught throughout its history and in the scriptures.
Well, and there's a point to make here on that. Just a quick one. This Nick was looking at the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. So for people who don't know, the two big kahunas of the Presbyterian denomination are the PCA and the PCUSA. Right. OPC is a small, relatively. I mean, even Amy Bird called it a small pond. It is a small portion of the Presbyterian denomination. And it is the most conservative of the three by far. So
its sister denomination is the PCA. It's it. So
okay, yeah.
So they're the people who kept true to the faith of the Presbyterian belief.
Right.
Everybody else flaked off.
Yeah. So when they had the reorganization of Princeton, they left and founded Westminster Seminary and left the PC, the Northern denomination, after they rejected the virgin birth and sometimes even the divinity of Christ and other things and the Bible. And they formed Westminster Theological Seminary, and eventually the Orthodox Presbyterian Church was founded by the excommunicated faculty. I think he was the dean, J. Gresham Machen, which I found out I'm somehow related to as well.
So the what I would say to this, growing up in the PCA, is if it has gotten to the point now where the small hyper-conservative offshoot of Presbyterianism is under assault by feminists. I haven't been directly associated with the PCA in a long time, but I cannot imagine it's gotten better over there.
No, it's worse.
So, gentlemen, this is everywhere in the church. It's in the smallest of the denominations. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
It's prevalent in the Catholic Church. Less so in the Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox. But they're so
trying.
Much smaller. But it's infiltrating them right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, you can't even go in there and not be faced with this stuff.
So now you can take this information and enter wherever you're going with eyes wide open.
And it may be smaller or greater, whatever denomination or church you're in. It's not going to be the same. It's not going to play out the same. It's not going to be implemented the same spirit. Well, what was that spirit we were talking about the other day?
Talking
The
about
Jezebel spirit?
Oh,
Yeah,
the it's everywhere.
everywhere. Any other thoughts, guys?
No, that's it.
No.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Please like and subscribe to the Resurgence of Sanity. And we will see you next time. You guys take care.
Good night.